The market keeps going higher. We have weekly signals that continue to look terrible, but those shorter time frames just keep going up and up and up. When is it going to happen? And this is where it's important to know stocks are only going to crash when Nvidia does crash. When Nvidia pulls down, the market will pull down, and that's because it is such a massive stock and it did not do something today that it really needed to going forward. So we're going to talk a lot about Nvidia in this video, and at the end of the video I'm actually going to talk about some things that have nothing to do with what we normally do, just some things that I see as fishy in the market right now, things going on with the McDonald's, things that are going on with Tesla. But as of today, we are going to, if you don't want to stick around for that, that's perfectly fine, but it might be a lot of fun because we're going to talk about some things. As we move forward, we're going to get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta going forward, looking at AMC and GME, paying attention to volatility. Make sure to stick around for volatility. It is always good to pay attention to that no matter what stock you are trading, but we're going to focus a little bit more on Nvidia because that's going to be the one that has to turn down for this market to go in the other direction. Let's get into it. Now, we're going to get into some fun stuff at the end of this video, so stick around for that. But Nvidia is going to be very important, so make sure to definitely stick around for that if you have the time, but I don't want to waste too much of your time. So for the SPY, let's get you those daily expected moves. 586.23 to the upside, 580.41 to the downside. You're noticing that that has gotten just a little bit tighter than today. We pretty much landed in the same place we landed yesterday, okay? So not a lot has been done since yesterday except for some price action. That could be some form of double bottom. One thing that we're noticing from these touches is this area is getting important. I marked it off as a zone, and the funny thing about this area that I want you to pay attention to as I draw over where we wicked out from as of today, right away in the morning, well, if you pull that across, it coincides with this gap. So that usually means that this level is very important. Therefore, if you lose that level, and I would more so say if you lose this entire zone at this point, things are going to start to get a little bit ugly. As we look at what is going on here, we were just paying attention to this live and we said, hey, we're reacting down to that daily expected move, but look at this. Everyone's starting to get bearish. A lot of the PCC going higher. We see a little 15-minute divergence by a daily expected move. Not only did we use that in order to find out if we were going to get some kind of bounce here, we weren't saying, hey, this could be some kind of massive move. It is a divergence that can turn up a 30-minute chart. That's what a 15-minute does. It could turn up a 30-minute or an hourly. But for the most part, we were talking about this on the live video, showing a divergence at the daily expected move, while IWM was making a divergence at its weekly expected move. Now, that's not seeing the best bounce, actually looking pretty flaggy, so watch if that makes another point here. I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but we also use the Dow, okay? We use the DIA, and this is going down towards that weekly expected move, and you see there's no divergence on the MACD, but you do have it down there on the RSI, and it was pretty significant, so we were really leaning towards a bounce, but it's doing something that we were talking about, and that's what leads us back over to the SPY. What we talked about with this was, yeah, this is a reversal signal for a 15-minute, but that's exactly what it is. It's for a 15-minute chart. And so we have to pay attention if this 30-minute does roll down at any point, because we just confirmed a bunch of divergences that are turning to the downside. So if this 30-minute does roll down, that might be a bad thing, because you might be building a bunch of liquidity up at this high and see some kind of drop. And this is where I'm going to tell you guys what I believe is going to go on here for right now. I do believe that this is a top in some way right now. If not now, then it's going to be after this happens. And that's going to be if the 2-hour is able to curl up into positive territory. I think you got one more push left in this thing and it all comes tumbling down. Not saying it has to be a crash, but at least some kind of bigger pullback. I'm mainly just saying my take here with my opinion, right? I'm fine with being wrong because I'm a good trader. I know that risk management is important, and I know that managing my trades are important. So I'm perfectly confident in telling you guys what I think. And if I'm wrong, I don't really care because I know how to manage my trades. But for the most part, if this 2-hour does cross up, what would that mean? Positivity, right? We're above the center line. So positive territory, we're building a bunch of liquidity. Can we shoot this higher? That's what's probably going on here. Are we pulling back with time, or are we building a bunch of liquidity in here to see some kind of drop? And that's why I want to pay attention tomorrow. Volatility is a little bit lower. We're seeing some signals for Nvidia that we want to pay attention to. But if you're going to take away something from the technical side, right, if you don't really care about my personal opinion, well, then I'd be paying attention to if that 2-hour does curl up, we can see positivity. Watch out for a divergence, because I believe if we make that 2-hour move, that's what's going to shape up for you. And then on the 30-minute, you just don't want that to roll down early on in the day. That can start to pile on if you consistently are able to lose this level, right? If we're able to maybe consistently is not the word, but if you curl down and you get below this level and you reject off of this, you can head a little bit lower. And I'd be a little weary if we start to lose this zone, because you're going to start to curl over daily charts, and the daily chart is hanging on by a thread for the SPY. SPY does look like it's trying to cup and handle to the upside, and the Qs were trying to get some kind of cup and handle, but the Qs are a little bit confused. So let's try to keep this concise for now and just say the 30-minute is something we're going to pay attention to. If that rolls over early on in the day, we have some points to pay attention to. So to the upside for the daily expected move for tomorrow, 499.27 to the upside and 492.65 to the downside. Now, key note is that pink line right there is the expected move for all of 2024, and bad things do tend to happen out of this zone. So pay attention, because when we go over Nvidia, it's really looking like it is topping out in these areas. So that's something to pay attention to, especially when we're talking about the Qs. But this is not the best chart to look at, in my opinion. You have a lot of wonkiness going on with the Qs on the 30 minutes. So is it a great one to trade? I wouldn't say necessarily it is. One thing I would be looking for here, though, is if this 2-hour does cross. Because if the 2-hour does cross fully and go negative, and that's going to be a key thing, it has to go negative because we've gotten this weirdness in the MACD. You really want to see if that thing's able to go negative. Then you could say, okay, now we're maybe going to start that negative trend to the downside, okay? So that's something I'm paying attention to for the Qs, but something that I've done to really clear my head on this, as today you might have been part of the live show when I accidentally sold my position I was building for the downside move. Ended up being fine, took a little bit better position actually, so I'm kind of glad it happened. But the daily is something to watch here. This daily keeps flashing red, and for the time being, I should actually be maybe a little bit positive about this, right? I should be a little bit positive about it, but the other things that I'm seeing across the board for Apple and Nvidia are telling me to be otherwise. So I still want to treat this like if that daily does cross back down, right, we're actually going to get the pullback moment. I think you're getting a lot of rigged moves, and we know that the rigged behavior is there, especially when we go over in the dollar later on. But for now, can we get that 2-hour move to actually give us that divergence, or are we going to fall flat and cross over this daily and actually get some kind of, I would say, pullback for now? Until this is able to really go negative, we have to say pullback, or if we cross over the weekly charts. So for now, if we did get that reaction down, you could end up down towards something like 478, get some kind of big bounce where people get euphoric, and then you actually see a head and shoulders pop up here for the Qs. But the way that I've been able to make sense of this overall is by opening up the time frames, right? The Qs look a little confusing on that 30-minute, so I just open it up on a weekly and I go, okay, what is really shaping up here? Okay, this really looks like we're making a downward divergence. We're making a downward divergence, and you can see how we're pretty much doing some kind of double top in this area. So I want to pay attention to any kind of weakness that I see, but the Qs are looking a little wonky, so therefore I used Nvidia and other stocks to help my analysis out, and that's something that you should do as a trader as well. Pay attention to multiple things, multiple time frames. It will make you a good trader if you need help with that. The courses are down there in the description. They are 90% off. You only have a little bit of time left to grab those. So, but for the Qs, has this confirmed? No. So am I adding a massive position? No, I'm building a position. I need to see that actually confirmed to say, okay, we have a chance to go down to the bottom of this channel, if not break that channel and start to head to the downside. So that's what I'm paying attention to for the Qs. Now we're going to get into one that might be showing some reversal signals, and that would be Apple. Apple, obviously the main signal we're looking for here is Apple to curl over on a daily chart. You are holding divergence points across this whole thing, and therefore if Apple's able to turn down from here, all of this was building liquidity, all of this was some kind of trap, and the dollar is suggesting that. So do we see weakness on a 2-hour for Apple? Well, you actually do, and you have confirmed it, right? We see the weakness, we have confirmed it, but we talk about this in the course, how sometimes your timing can be a little bit off, right? The market maker likes to shoot a stock a little bit higher and then ended up having a 30-minute cross down at the top. So the 2-hour did confirm divergence here. You did have the divergence here. You actually have divergence all the way across this. So I was a little bit bearish on this at this level. And that's something key to understand is we're not necessarily, bearish down here. We're not necessarily bearish down here. We start to get bearish up in these levels, right? We get bearish once we see reversal signals popping up, and that's exactly what confirmed today for Apple. Looks like you got one more 30-minute move up that was able to cross, so we should pay attention to if there is some positivity. But is this some great price action that looks like clear-cut trades to me right now? Not necessarily. This could be some kind of really gappy, really wonky cup and handle at this point, and since that's curled up, I don't want to risk a bunch of money saying, hey, this is going to go down when this just curled up. Now, if I see that flash back down in the morning, or if we cross through that and then curl back down, creating that divergence point, then we can talk about things a little bit differently for Apple. So make sure to join us in the morning so you can join us for the live show, where we will be paying a little bit closer attention to Apple come tomorrow. Tesla, I think the main signal you're paying attention to here is the hourly chart. You did make some kind of divergence. This is not by a weekly expected move, and you do have earnings around the corner. We have to mention that because earnings can kind of throw away all of technical analysis. It could just be, hey, they say one good thing and 10 bad things, but because of the good thing, the market maker shoots it higher. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about this with the fishy behavior, because very, very fishy behavior for Tesla, something with a ton of implied volatility, is not really moving that drastically. Now we're getting more movement this week, which is good. We've confirmed an hourly divergence. So that says, hey, we have the chance to go into positive territory. We have a good chance to see some kind of positive trend begin here on the hourly, or at least curl up some kind of 2 hour into positive territory. So this is going to be the big thing. If we unconfirm that, we curl down on a 2 hour, then we're probably heading down towards this zone. And I'd just be very cautious with this around earnings. You know, if you absolutely think you have to take the play or something like that, I do not encourage that with my own trading. I don't really trade earnings or anything like that. Whenever a stock has earnings, I just look at a different stock. But for the most part, earnings is a risky business. It is a 50-50 flip. So if you're going to do it, make sure to manage your risk in the amount of money you're putting behind the trade. It just means if there's more implied volatility, you can get bigger movement. So you don't necessarily need to risk as much money or as many contracts or something like that in order to see a good play. It's good that we're starting to reject here. We'll see if that has anything to say come tomorrow, but not the best technicals here for Tesla at this moment. Just an hourly divergence down there at the low saying, hey, I could go up, but watch out for earnings. Now I'm going to show you one that does have some reversal signals popping up here and confirmed at the end of the day, and that would be Amazon. Amazon giving us that cup that we said that handle might come. Look for that 2 hour to cross. The 2 hour didn't happen. So we said if the 2 hour doesn't cross, 30-minute can pop up, and maybe we're actually going to play this out. And that's still on the table. You're still positive, right? Anything can happen. But I want you to see how downward that divergence is right now, how downward this divergence is. This tells me that we can see major weakness tomorrow, but we always need bad news. That's right. We talk about divergences a lot on this channel, but you need that bad news in order to turn it down. So if these things start to swing back up, you have to react, and that's how you manage trades. Okay, but for the most part, we're fishing for a top here, and this is not a good signal. This means the 2 hour can roll down, and you're seeing the 2 hour give those divergences. I know it's not in overbought territory, but you do see how the price action is heading to the upward direction, at least with the closes and stuff like that. And this is pointing down. Now that has not crossed over. So I think a big signal to pay attention to for Amazon tomorrow is if that 2 hour does confirm down. Now we're going to talk about Nvidia, and Nvidia is approaching a weekly expected move right above it very quickly. Now we still could see one more move up, but something that I did post to Patreon was this look right here. If that crossed over, we can see weakness, and you'll notice that is crossed over. So we need some bad news to maybe shoot Nvidia lower. This is why you need to pay attention to Nvidia. Notice that the market will not fully drop unless Nvidia is dropping. So if Nvidia is going to drop, what signal are we looking for? Well, in this, if I took some kind of 30-minute trade, right, then managing the trade maybe on a 15-minute, I wouldn't even be managing the trade right now. And what you're noticing is, you know, maybe this isn't able to break through that, and that's why this MACD is not crossing up. It is starting to reject a little bit towards the center line, which is not a good look. You can see that divergence right here a little bit clear on the RSI. Not necessarily the best for the RSI across the way, but you can notice that it's there, and that's leading to weakness. If the 15-minute does cross up, we can see a little bit of positivity, but you're going to run into a weekly expected move, so it means be a little bit cautious with that. Now, the main signal I would be watching, though, is the 2 hour. The 2 hour is a great significant divergence here, and we have used a lot of signals from Nvidia in the past for bullish trades. And then they looked exactly the opposite of this. So if we just zoom out a little bit, and we go down to lower levels, right? We go down to this level right here. We used Nvidia right here because it came out of a monthly expected move, and you did have a 2 hour divergence, and you had a very significant one on the RSI telling us, hey, everyone thinks this is crashing down. This is probably about to head the other direction. Awesome. Then we head the other direction. We get up to these levels and we go, okay, there's 30-minute divergences all in this. The 2 hour could pull back here, ended up being more than a pullback. Okay, so we're paying attention to the right things. And then down at these levels, we had another 30-minute divergence outside of the monthly expected move for September. This was August, this was September. We found some great trades for Nvidia, and that divergence led to a bounce here, but we didn't have it as clear on the 2 hour, so we were a little bit hesitant that this could see as massive as a move as in the past. Now, what are we seeing in the current price action? Well, you're seeing 2 hour divergences pop up across the way here. And you're seeing these 2 hour divergences pop up, and where are we? We are outside of a monthly expected move. We're pretty significantly outside of that. So if this 2 hour does cross down, I'd pay attention, because most of the time how we've used it, well, pretty much 3 for 3 in the past couple of months, we've seen these type of moves outside of these expected moves for the month end up being a bad thing for Nvidia. So let's see, we're coming into the end of October. That's the big difference here. This is happening kind of with only a week or so left in October. These happened at the beginning for the most part of those months, except for this one here obviously happened August 22nd on my birthday. But for the most part, 2 hour divergences popping up outside of a monthly expected move, and that's something that we like to pay attention to. It doesn't mean it can't go a little bit higher. It doesn't mean it has to land below that. But if this does confirm, it does suggest higher probable move would be 68% chance to land back in that zone by the end of October. So I'm paying very close attention to this for Nvidia, okay? I'm paying very close attention because we are forming some divergence across the way here. I would more so be looking at this on the weekly scale. This has curled up, so that tells us what? Well, the weekly can experience positivity if this doesn't play out, right? If this never curls down, then this is just going to continue to go up because the MACD is crossed up in positive territory. But I just want you to notice, and we'll point this out again, but notice here, you didn't have a divergence on the MACD, you had it on the RSI. That led to this. This is breaking out. Everyone's getting euphoric, talking about new all-time highs for Nvidia, and if that would just cross down, that would actually be a significant divergence on the MACD, on the RSI, and you'd have triple divergence on the RSI. So it tells me, if I really zoom out and look at things, I should probably be cautious with Nvidia, and if I want to get bullish on it, I might want to wait for a more significant pullback, but I think we're at risk of some kind of crash in this area, especially as we go look at volatility. AMD is trying to do its best to bounce here. It really is. It's kind of just riding on that broken wedge, right? We're riding down on it. We're creating these little points here. And you notice we're not curling back down on the 2 hour. If that does happen, terrible things can start to happen, really, because you're already negative. You weren't oversold yet or anything like that. But we do have some signals in here suggesting that AMD does want to try to bounce, at least attempt a bounce. And I think it's more clear on the hourly here. You see how significant this really gets when we look at it on an hourly, and that's what I like to do. I like to find the time frame that looks the most clear, and then that's the one I really go with. And at this moment, we see very significant divergence. You can almost draw that pretty much in a very straight up or diagonal line there. You can see that it's pretty straight up there for the RSI as well. So they are at the same time. If this does curl up, that means, hey, we can see a solid move here from AMD. That's key to understand. But at the same time, this is curled down right now. So I don't necessarily want to react to anything until I see that signal really proven in momentum. It will most of the time carry you up higher. And when it doesn't, you need to pay attention to how to manage the trade. So one thing is going to be key here. This 30-minute has curled up. If that curls up and curls right back down, I need to be paying attention. If this curls up on the MACD and curls right back down, I need to maybe be managing a trade if I'm trying to take some upside play, because you notice that AMD is extremely down, SMCI is extremely down. Google isn't at all-time highs. Microsoft, good moves, but they're just still down overall. And then we notice Nvidia and Apple are the two really holding this thing up. So I'd really pay attention if Nvidia sees weakness, because it could mean further weakness for AMD. It just means be cautious with upside plays in these areas. This is the signal that really helped us out yesterday. This really helped us out yesterday because we were paying attention to if it made a divergence down here, right? We mentioned it in the video. That's why it's good to watch the entire thing. And we're noticing if that divergence did prove, we can turn up a 2 hour. Okay, so that really helped us in seeing, hey, is this actually going to be a big downfall, or is Meta going to make this divergence to be able to help out the market at this point? You can see where we're reacting to now. A pullback would be nice on the 30-minute. It's relatively positive, so that has a good shot to curl back up. If it's able to curl back up, that's a good thing. If it can't curl back up, that's where it gets a little bit rough, okay? If you see this 2 hour is curling up, hey, that's great, because we saw a 30-minute divergence, and we said, okay, that has a good chance to turn up the 2 hour, you're taking back the 5. All of this looks good, and with proper structure, we can continue to look good. But if you start to curl down on a 2 hour, curl down on an hourly, curl down on a 2 hour, that's gonna be a little bit bad. just because you do have potential for more of a daily pullback here for Meta. I think a pullback down into retest the broken trend line here would be the best thing for Meta, and I think a lot's going to rely on earnings for this. So earnings really will be a little bit wonky unless we have a black swan moment, and so that's something to pay attention to. Which, something we're going to talk about later, is the fact that Bitcoin, gold, and the dollar have all been going up the past few weeks, and I think one of them's lying. One thing that we do want to pay attention to might be AMC, up 1.17%. Seeing that cross up down here on the MACD, we saw the 2-hour signal that was telling us, hey, this has a chance to pop, and it popped. It's struggling to get through our level of 437. If you want to see something crazy, 471. Key thing here is, hey, we're curled up, so good things can happen. This is when we try to react. We don't try to buy it all the time in these little areas, right? We can just sit and be like, okay, that daily crossed up. Hey, I like daily momentum, and that's kind of how we treat it. For the most part, the 30-minute is going to be something interesting here. We're seeing that fall off a little bit. So if this were to curl back down, if this curls back down where it is right now, if they start to fight the stock and that 30-minute curls down, it means not the moment. But as that 30-minute is curled up, it means something good can happen. That's what you have to say for AMC. Same thing could go for GME. Now, something we were paying attention to for GME was some kind of 2-hour divergence down here. And we didn't necessarily make a divergence at this point, but we are closer to the center line. So if GME is able to continue to see positivity like it did for today, up 1.11%, well, then that would cross the MACD, and that's where we really want to pay attention. Once that MACD does cross, that's when we want to be watching this guy, because if you zoom out to a daily scale, we already talked about the good signals, and it is crossing down on the daily scale, but notice it's on a positive bar. That's a little bit different. It does lean us towards, hey, it's still crossing down a momentum. This could be fought against. That's why we're going to watch that 2-hour. But for the most part, I just want to zoom out and show you guys how tight this is getting, and I think an explosive move is coming in the next few weeks, actually. Now, will that be something massive, or will we just see some kind of pop up to 25 and then start to drift back off? That's going to have to be done in real time throughout each update video. So we will pay attention to this for you. You need to get through this week, 2253, to see something crazy. Okay, now it's time for volatility, and from this point we were saying, hey, we can get a squeeze if we cross down. Okay, we cross down, and then we say, well, we can really get a squeeze if we cross through the 50. That's when I'm more convinced we're going to get a real squeeze out of the market right now, and that would be a reaction down to the 200 at that point. So that's something I'm paying attention to. But did we lose the 50 yet? No, we got a little reaction from volatility when we said intraday. We're going to go over that in a bit, so I'll just leave that for a sec. So if that does cross back below the 200, we can see more of a squeeze going down to 1212, and that's something interesting to notice. Notice the crash signal is still holding. The 50 is above the 200. You are behaving like a bear market before a bear market has even started. Now, one thing I'm looking at as of right now is if this 2-hour can remain turned up. We have not crossed down yet. Do we make some kind of rejection divergence here? When you look at the 30-minute, you don't get the best signals. But something we were paying attention was the fact that the 30-minute had divergence here, and that did cross, leading us to believe, hey, upside is the most likely move. And then at the same time, we saw what? We saw the 15-minute divergence from the SPY. We saw the divergence for IWM, and we saw the divergence for the Dow Jones all at the same time. So you notice when these signals are at the same time, we can really read into them. And the Dow was something that we really were focusing on there. IWM, we were focusing on it as well, but seeing a lackluster bounce. So for the most part, if this 2-hour does cross down, what I want to pay attention to is, does it reach down, touch that 50 on the daily, and then turn back up and give us that divergence point? Or are we going to reject from here and start to turn up as we are a little bit closer to the center line? That's something I'm watching. Something that can help us out with that is just seeing if the 30-minute can bounce in this area. You see where we would maybe create some structure. We might react up to this level, take that. And what that would do is we'd take back the 5, react back down and test off of it, and then turn back up, giving you some kind of head and shoulders for volatility. So the way I look at it right now is the bigger picture across the board for the SPY, the Qs, Nvidia, Apple, all these things look terrible from a macro perspective. I would say more, if you're thinking about like investing, is this a good time? No. So therefore, you're probably thinking stocks have a bad look. They're probably going to come down a little bit. So that's what I'm really thinking about this market right now. I don't think we have much time left. I think we might even just have like 24 hours and see if we can curl up on a 2-hour. And if we can't, this thing might be over. the SPY was able to go down to lower levels and then reach back up, trying to cross that 2 hour. And what's the dollar doing? It's continuing to go higher. So we still see this major move from the dollar. And this is where we really have to point out, well, the dollar's been going up for a while. What is it? Gold. Sorry, I burped. Gold's been going up for a while here after that consolidation, making a divergence at these levels, but just screaming higher. And Bitcoin's all going higher at the same time, right? We're all going higher together. How nice is that? Everyone gets a trophy. Yay. But which one is lying here? One of these have to be lying. Part of me thinks it's going to be Bitcoin, because Bitcoin right now, you have a 2 hour divergence, right? That wants to form. Maybe if we go to the top, you had them at the tops already. So it would make sense to just continue to go lower. You've already come down to the key level. You can make a head and shoulders here and start to reject, right? We create that shoulder, we got a neckline, we got left head, right shoulder. So this is just something interesting I'm paying attention to at this moment. What is lying? And today I did a little bit of research on JP Morgan, and JP Morgan actually, since these levels over here, this big push, ever since this big push, JP Morgan's chart has looked eerily similar to Bitcoin, okay? Eerily similar to Bitcoin. And what you're going to notice when I pull over to this is it does have in the past, right? What do we see? We see the upward move, big upward move, right? Doesn't that look familiar? We see one peak, we see two, we see the divergence point, exactly how Nvidia did. Then Nvidia tore down. What happened? They based out around the same time. They continued to go up. They saw this pullback in this area, and then we saw a boom, and that's exactly what Bitcoin has done. Now, JP Morgan hasn't really consolidated sideways necessarily, kind of like Bitcoin has. It's kind of more looking like a flag, so they're a little different, but you'll notice that JP Morgan does have reversal signals. So if these are going to remain correlated and JP Morgan does turn down on this MACD and really start to lose, I would say the price point of about 183, we're not able to hold up at something like 173, this could end up going all the way down to something like 156. And I think that these are correlated in some way, but I do need to do more research on this. This is just something I was looking at throughout the day because a lot of people were talking about it, right? I saw someone who was really talking about the fact that JP Morgan was rumored to have bought a ton of Bitcoin and be one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin in some European markets. And it looks like that might be true at this point. So this is just one of the unique things that I was looking at today, and I thought I would share it with you guys. Next thing that I just thought was fishy in the market was the fact that Tesla dropped off right as Elon Musk really started to go gung-ho for, I'm going to get political, I'm going to support someone, and blah, blah, blah. Well, we saw a major drop. And the reason that I think this is fishy now is just because I wanted to show you guys McDonald's. McDonald's right now is getting some terrible news, right? Some bad news, and that is dropping pretty damn significantly. And this is just after, well, what happened? Well, Donald Trump actually served some fries there. So I just think that that is interesting. I thought it was a funny point. Maybe if you have any kind of comment on this and you have some information about this kind of stuff, maybe you have some data for me, please put it in the comments down in the description or down below, because I really want to look into this. I think it's interesting that it seems like everything that touches Donald Trump right now, I mean, except for DJT, ends up going to the downside, but DJT's had its own problems for a long time. So I just thought that that was unique. I thought it was something that was fun to bring to your attention. And we noticed that, what did it have up here? It had divergence on the MACD, but not the RSI at the same time. But I am going to show you something in here that actually said there's weakness, and that's going to be your 30-minute or maybe an hourly chart. Yeah, I think it was the hourly chart. At the top here, you notice what? Well, weirdly enough, before this news comes out, what do you see? You're going to see weakness, and you notice when you get news, you see the dramatic downside, right? So right here, you see the hourly divergence. We see that clearly on the MACD. We see that very clearly and very significant on the RSI and MACD at the same time, and something bad ends up happening. So I just thought that was unique. I thought I'd bring it to your attention. It is good to look at a chart and see how these play out when bad news does happen, and how there most of the time is going to be divergence at those times, and Nvidia has a few of those right now. So thank you guys for looking at some of that stuff with me. I thought it was just some fun. Maybe tell me what you think. If you think like whatever Donald Trump touches is going to shoot down, does politics have an effect on what stocks they want to perform well and not well. That would be interesting to look into. And then the other part of that is which one's wrong? Is it Bitcoin? Is it the dollar? Is it gold? Because all of them are going up kind of at the same time, and that's something very interesting. But the main takeaway here is I do believe that we are forming a major top, and it could very well be right now. The signals that I'm seeing right now, as far as Nvidia goes, as far as the market goes, as far as the Dow trying to curl down and seeing if that can get a lower high, it really looks like to me maybe we get one more 2-hour push higher, but I think we're coming to a dramatic halt very, very soon. Maybe it's going to leak into next week with all the election stuff going on. But one thing to note is apparently Donald Trump is winning in the early voting. And so if someone out there who's a big guy, a big player, a big elite or something like that might want to do something bad, they might do it pretty soon. But for the most part, we're going to follow the signals. We're going to trade like water. We're going to manage that risk. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing. You guys are fantastic. And I look forward to streaming with you guys tomorrow morning. All right? Peace.